Do you know who's bought a new big bungalow for himself? Grab CEO, Razer CEO, Secret Lab CEO, Mr. Ian Ang. Now today's discussion, I'll be having a few parts for you prepared. Firstly, I'll be sharing with you what exactly is the criteria to own a GCB. I'll be sharing with you the details, the eligibility and stuff. Secondly, I'll be sharing with you what are the recent transactions, what are the internal real returns displayed by this asset class. And last but not least, I'll be sharing with you how much it costs if you're keen to buy one for yourself right now. And if you stay to the end of the video, I'll be dropping a quick hint as to what's coming up next week. Something very interesting. And before I get that, invite you to smash your like button early because it's the kind of thing I was to prepare this presentation for you. So without further ado, let's roll in the intro video. Hi guys, welcome back. Now let's start by defining what exactly is a GCB, a good class bungalow. And this is actually a list of where GCBs actually reside. As you can see, these locations, District 10, 11, and some of the expected names over there are, for example, 6th Avenue, Nassim Road. These are, of course, the most atas of landed areas, correct? So the next part of definition is GCBs must all have this area of 1,400 square meters, which is about 15,000 square feet. That's why when you times a few thousand PSF, you realize that numbers are usually 30 million and above. And there are approximately 2,700 GCBs in Singapore. And this is a very important criteria. If you realize 2007, it really means that it's very limited, correct? We're not building new land for GCBs anytime soon, which means this is a very limited asset class. Maybe the wealthy are thinking they can store their assets into this very limited property itself, and then the land in Singapore is not going to have increase in supply. Very protected against inflation, correct? And what next? We understand from GCBs, you must be a Singaporean to buy. If you're a foreigner, there are certain criteria. It's not so easy, but in general, it has to be a Singaporean. That's why those names that came up, Grab CEO, Razer CEO, and of course, Secret Lab CEO. I didn't know Secret Lab is making so much money. I've only seen their advertisements before, but Secret Lab must be very profitable. If not, how can he be forking out $30 million? So the next question is, who's up next? Because as expected, Singapore's billionaire list includes, for example, C Limited, Mr. Forrest Lee. When are you buying your GCB, or you've already bought one already? So do share with the news. We'll be all keen to see what are your next moves. As to the criteria for foreigners, just to touch on it briefly, a foreigner must be a Singaporean PR for at least 5 years. And one example of someone who's bought that is actually Mr. James Dyson, who bought this $45 million bungalow in Bukit Timah in July 2019. And there's another CEO to throw into the name list, and it's actually the Nanofilm CEO. And Nanofilm CEO has actually cashed out really recently from his listing of his firm. So I guess they are loaded with cash and they are looking to park their monies into hard assets like a GCB. So now let's role play for a bit, just in case you and I, we want to buy a GCB for our families, correct? How much is it going to cost? I have actually very interesting numbers for you. And before we start things, let me pull out first. Buyer stamp duty. This is unavoidable. If you buy a $27 million property, you should expect your stamp duty itself to be almost $1 million. Wow, that is crazy, right? So I mean, if that shocks you already, the next portion is just going to blow your mind. So now let's pull up certain numbers. This is actually done by Seedly. So I actually use their numbers to present to you and really try to open up, our mental horizon, because the rich are seeing these numbers, and yet for us, we are so blown away by it. The first number to take note of is upfront. How much do you need to have? You must have 1.35 million in addition to the stamp duty. And of course, these rich folks, they do definitely have more than one property, right? So additional buyer stamp duty, I don't know how they're paying for it. Very interesting. The next part, of course, you should need to fund also 20% of it, which is going to be $5.4 million. We don't have that much in CPF, correct? There's a cap to things, which means the bulk of this $5.4 million is going to come out from cash. So good, you have settled this 6.75 million. The next portion of things is you need to take a loan, correct, of 20 million 0.25. Wow, and assuming you're going to pay this off over 30 years, how much is it going to cost? There's a number over there. But before we get to that, let me share with you. When I was preparing this topic, I was talking to my wife. I was asking her, hey dear, let's buy a $30 million home. How much do you think it's going to cost per month? She just came out with a wild number and she was saying 30-something thousand per month. And that is actually very far from it. If you see the number that I'm going to highlight for you now, you realize that $20 million loan, 30 years time frame, you need to pay $75,865. Wow. that is actually many people's annual income. If not, that is a household expenditure. And yet, this is the mortgage cost that's needed if you're to buy a $27 million GCB. Blown away because there's more numbers. Not only that, you also have maintenance, monthly cost. This is mentioned as 400, but from what I see, that doesn't even pay for landscaping because you need a lot of trees, landscaping costs, correct? I guess it's thousands of dollars less. So that is one thing to note. And therefore, they put there on a monthly salary, you do need $78,565 to afford this loan. But wait, since we are trying to imagine, why not? Let's think of the best of the best. Why not you and I go for that? So let me present to you 33 Nassim Road. This banking property sold for a whopping $230 million. And if you were to buy it, your loan itself will be $172.5 million. And it will cost you $646,000 per month for 30 years. Now take a moment to digest that astronomically big number. 646 per month means 7 million per year, correct? And if our PM salary is only 4 million, which Singaporean can actually afford 7 million just to pay off loans? Maybe there is. Let me present to you Mr. P.H. Gupta, CEO of DBS. Now he earns 9.18 million, so maybe he is qualified. You and I, let's settle back for something smaller. And let's take a tour of what these CEOs, as I mentioned, have already bought. And since very likely we can't buy, might as well be poke holes at their purchases, correct? And the first one up, this is actually bought by CEO of Secret Lab, Mr. Ian Ang. And as you can see, it looks very much along the main road, not very exclusive leh. How about this, by Grab CEO? And if you see, the tree is so run down, the place looks quite in shambles, correct? How about this, by Razer CEO? It doesn't look very private leh, especially if you're paying like $30 million. And last but not least, what about this? This is actually bought by Nanofilm's family itself. Very private, very nice trees, very nice house, but it looks like a museum leh, and I'll be very scared to stay there. So thinking back, I think not bad lah, my small little house over here. And NTUC is just round the corner, unlike all these houses which are so ulu. So just a special mention, next week I'll be sharing with you a house tour of mine just as a celebration for 20,000 subs. So thank you so much if you're a subscriber. If you haven't subscribed, smash on subscribe because there's more interesting information coming up. Okay, so the next part I'll try to address with you is actually, are GCBs a good investment or not? I've actually 4 transactions to show you. This is a summary table over here, and these 4 transactions are all pretty recent. So the main part of things is the first one over there. You see Binjao Park. That was bought at $27 million in 2010 and sold off at $40 million. An internal rate of return of 3.6%. What about this 27 Olive Road? This is actually bought by Secret Labs CEO Mr. Ian Ang. He was actually buying it at $36 million, but the previous person bought it at $26.1 million, so a gain of close to $10 million. Again, the internal rate of return is 3.6%. But what about these 2 other transactions, Sweetenham Road and Nassim Road? These 2 actually saw a very big gain, correct? In my calculations, these 2 show an IRR of 10% or if not close to 10%. Wow, that is a fantastic rate of return, especially with time such a big quantum. It's going to make that person transacting multi-million dollars. And if we pull up the SRX, Landed Property Index, you realize that why a key reason for such gains can be attributed to the curve, the right up all the way. So these 2 properties were bought in 2003. That was during SARS period where markets were very distressed in the property sense. And then they rode up the curve from 2007 all the way to 2013. So there was a few up cycles that they caught. And that's why the IRR for that property purchase is 10% per annum. So again, it reinforces, if you were to buy property, do investment in property, then you need to understand the market cycles. Is it a time where it's riding up high? Currently, the cycle is going upwards. The trend for it, let me pull out for you the latest figures, are going up. But how sustainable is it? That is where you need to exercise your acumen as an investor. I also want to touch on this possible opportunity in Sentosa's property. And just in case you know a thing or 2 more, do share in the comment sections, because I do think Sentosa's properties seem to have declined too many years already there, and they may not reflect the overall sentiment in Singapore's property markets. Why do I say so? Back in 2008, Sentosa's landed properties are available for foreigners to buy. GCBs are for Singaporeans. But landed properties in Sentosa attracted wealthy Chinese, for example, that poured millions of dollars to buy properties over there. And back then, Sentosa had this very luxurious, very hippie image to things. And that's why there was this asset bubble that was really building in Sentosa's properties. That bubble actually skyrocketed all the way to 2013 as per all Singapore properties. And then it fell from there. So as you can see, this graph over here shows Sentosa's property has been declining for many years, correct? But do you realize something? Sentosa's property has never recovered back to the heydays. The rest of Singapore has actually surpassed the 2013 index already. Sentosa's property, if you bought it at 2013, 2,500 per square foot, now you'll still be seeing losses. And if your property is big enough, you'll be seeing multi-million dollar losses. So could Sentosa be an opportunity? I don't know. Leave your thoughts and comments. But I think, of course, the simpler way is to buy into companies that have Sentosa properties, like Hobby. Hobby owns a few Sentosa properties. They're one of the early players for development there. And Hobby still owns properties to sell off. So if you can't buy a luxury property in Sentosa, maybe get exposure via Hobby. And Hobby is a company I've covered before on my private channel. So if you're keen, look for links below to join our private members channel. In conclusion, I have some food for thought for you. The first is that is the world seeing too much liquidity? The second is that it's inflation on the horizon. Because when these wealthy people move so much money, surely they are feeling some pressure. So I do think they're looking to preserve their wealth. They have made so much money listing their companies like Grab CEO and Razer CEO. They are looking to move their wealth into hard assets. Assets that are limited. Because when it's limited, it preserves wealth, correct? So GCBs in Singapore are a natural choice. And the political landscape in Singapore is so sound. That's why parking big amounts of money there really makes a lot of sense. But for us, what can we do? There are things such as trading cards. Of course, the top end of trading cards still cost very much. This is an example of Luka Doncic's debut card. And what do you realize is it traded for $4.6 million simply because it's unique and possibly able to preserve wealth. What about for NFTs? You may have heard of it before. NFTs run on the Ethereum network and they are possibly an option to preserve wealth for any individual. Then what about for Bitcoin? Bitcoin will build up to 21 million in circulation, not any more, not any less. And Bitcoin itself, based on a limited supply, is able to preserve wealth just like gold. So these are various topics to consider if you are looking to protect yourself against inflation. And if you are keen to find out more about Bitcoin, Ethereum, look out for this previous tutorial I've done. This is actually how you can buy cryptocurrency in Singapore. A simple tutorial which starts off by sharing with you the risk of cryptocurrencies. If you are new, maybe this tutorial might help you understand things a bit better. With that, I'll sign off from here and see you there. Take care and goodbye.